They called her little girl, and snatched her rifle away, laughing like bullies in a playground. 5 grown men against 1 small woman. They thought it would be easy. They thought wrong. What happened next in those 87 seconds would become the most talked about moment in military training history. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The sun was coming up over the army training base. Sarah Chin put on her helmet and checked her gun. Today was the big test. After 3 months of hard training, she would show what she could do. "Look at little Chin," said Marcus Webb. He was a tall guy from Texas who always made fun of Sarah. Still playing with her toy gun like a little girl. The other guys laughed. Jake Morrison was big like a football player. He shook his head and said, "I can't believe they let girls do army training. This is not a place for someone who can't even lift a gun." Sarah looked straight ahead. She listened to the teacher. She heard these bad words every day. Every single day someone said something mean about her size, about being a girl, about not belonging here. She was the smallest person in the group. She was only 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighed 125 pounds. "Today's test is easy," shouted Sergeant Rodriguez loudly. 5 soldiers against 1 soldier. Each team will fight 1 person. Use what you learned. Trust yourself. Sarah's heart beat fast. She had waited so long for this chance to show everyone what she could do. She had spent extra hours in the gym. She had learned martial arts since she was a little girl. She studied fighting moves every night. Today all of that would help her. "Chin, you go first," the sergeant said. Webb's group looked at each other and started smiling big. This was going to be fun for them. Sarah walked to the fighting area. Webb called out loud so everyone could hear. "Hey Sergeant, are you sure about this? We don't want to hurt the little lady." All his friends laughed mean and loud. Other soldiers turned to watch. Some looked worried. Others laughed too. "Maybe she should go cook food instead," said Morrison, hitting his leg. "This is work for men." Sarah felt her face get hot with anger and shame. She had worked 2 times harder than any of them. Her test scores were better than theirs. She never missed when shooting targets. But none of that seemed to matter to them. "I can take care of myself," she said quietly. But her voice was too soft. No one heard her because they were laughing too loud. Danny Torres from Webb's team walked up with a mean smile. "I have an idea, sweetheart. Why don't you give us that gun? You won't need it anyway." "The test says I need," Sarah started to say. "Come on," said Kevin Park, cutting her off. "We all know you can't really use that gun. Just give it to us before someone gets hurt." Webb walked up close to her. His shadow covered her small body. "Yeah, Chin. Give us the gun. This is about to get serious. We don't want you crying like a baby later." Before Sarah could do anything, Morrison grabbed her gun from behind. Webb was talking to her from the front so she didn't see Morrison coming. They pulled the gun from her hands so fast that she almost fell down. "There we go," Webb said, throwing the gun to Torres. "Much better. Now maybe we can have a real fight." Alex Kumar was the 5th guy on their team. He looked worried but didn't say anything. The other soldiers watching were quiet now. They could feel something bad was happening. Sarah looked at Sergeant Rodriguez. But he was looking at his papers. Either he didn't see what happened or he didn't care. Sarah felt sad and alone. "What's wrong, Chin?" Webb said in a mean voice. "You look scared. Maybe you should quit now." "Yeah," Morrison said, making his hands into fists. "We'll be nice to you. We don't want to break our little toy." Sarah felt something cold in her stomach. But it wasn't fear. It was focus. Every mean word, every laugh, every time someone said she couldn't do something, all of it came together. It made her feel strong and angry in a good way. She thought about her grandfather. He taught her martial arts when she was little. "Size doesn't matter, little one," he always said. "Skill matters. Having a strong heart matters. Sometimes the smallest person is the most dangerous person." "You know what?" Sarah said. Her voice was strong now. "Keep the gun. I don't need it." The 5 men looked at each other. They were confused. Why was she suddenly so confident? "What did you say?" Webb asked. Sarah moved her shoulders and got ready to fight. "I said keep it. Let's see how tough you really are." Morrison laughed again, but it didn't sound real this time. "Oh, look at this. We got a tough guy here. This is going to be fun." Sergeant Rodriguez blew his whistle. "Fight starts, now." Webb ran at her first. He was charging like an angry bull with his fists up. He was strong but slow. Sarah could see his moves coming from far away. She waited until the right moment. Then she stepped to the side and kicked his legs. He fell down hard. All the air came out of his lungs. Morrison came next. He swung his fist in a big circle. would have knocked out most people. Sarah bent down under his fist. She hit him with her elbow in the stomach. When he bent over trying to breathe, she grabbed his head and hit it with her knee. He fell down and didn't get up. 10 seconds had gone by. Torres still had Sarah's gun. He tried to hit her with it like a stick. But Sarah grabbed the gun, twisted it away from him, and used his own movement to throw him over her shoulder. He landed hard on his back. He couldn't move. Park was more careful now. He tried to grab her in a big hug with both arms. Sarah slipped away from him. She spun around behind him and put her arm around his neck. This was a move her grandfather taught her. Park tried to fight for a few seconds. Then he went to sleep. She put him down gently. Kumar was the last man standing. He put up his hands. Wait, I don't want to. But Sarah was already moving. She pretended to go left, then went right. She hit a special spot on his neck. Kumar's eyes rolled back and he fell down. 87 seconds. Sarah stood in the middle of the fighting area. She was breathing hard but felt strong. Around her, 5 men were lying down. Some were unconscious. Some were making hurt sounds. The whole training ground was completely quiet. Sergeant Rodriguez looked at his watch. Then he looked at Sarah. Then he looked at his watch again. 87 seconds, he said. His voice was full of amazement. The soldiers watching started cheering and clapping. Sarah had just done something none of them had ever seen before. The medics ran over to check on the 5 men. Sarah picked up her gun from where Torres had dropped it. Her hands were not shaking anymore. Webb woke up first. He sat up slowly, holding his head. He looked around, confused. When he saw Sarah, his eyes were big with shock and something new, respect. How? He whispered. 12 years of martial arts training, Sarah said simply. Plus you guys made me really want to win. Morrison got up slowly. His nose was bleeding but not broken. He stared at Sarah for a long time. Then he put out his hand. I'm sorry. About what we said, about taking your gun. Sarah looked at his hand. Then she looked at the other men as they slowly got better. She saw shame on their faces now. And something she had never seen before. They finally saw her as real. She shook Morrison's hand. I accept your apology. Torres stood up but was still wobbly. Where did you learn to fight like that? My grandfather was a Marine, Sarah said. He taught me that being strong isn't about being big. It's about having willpower. And I have a lot of willpower. Park nodded, still touching his neck. We thought you were weak. We were wrong. Kumar was the last to wake up. He just stared at her with wide eyes. I will never make you angry again. Sergeant Rodriguez walked over. His face was serious but proud. Chin, that was the best hand-to-hand fighting I've seen in 20 years of training soldiers. The other trainees came closer. Their faces were full of amazement and new respect. Sarah felt something warm and good in her chest. But more important, the sergeant kept talking, you showed exactly what this training is supposed to teach. When things are hard, when your equipment breaks, when people don't believe in you, you find a way to win. Webb got up slowly, holding his side where it hurt. He walked over to Sarah. His face was serious now. Chin, I owe you more than just saying sorry. I've been really mean to you since training started. Yes, you have, Sarah agreed. This made him feel even worse. I thought because you were small, because you were a woman, that meant you were weak. I was completely wrong. He put out his hand. After thinking about it, Sarah shook it. We all were wrong, Morrison said, coming over too. You're not just tough for a girl. You're tougher than all of us. I'm tough, that's it, Sarah said. And I'm also a soldier just like you guys. The group nodded. They finally understood. In the weeks that followed, everything was different. The same men who had been mean to Sarah now asked her to teach them. They wanted to learn her fighting moves. They wanted her advice. The respect was real. She had earned it. Webb became one of her best friends. You know what's crazy? He told her one night when they were cleaning their guns. I always thought respect was something you had to demand from people. You taught me that respect is something you earn. Morrison's nose healed but was a little crooked now. He laughed whenever someone talked about that day. The best lesson I ever learned came from the smallest person in our group. He would say, don't judge a fighter by how big they are. Sergeant Rodriguez talked to Sarah alone after their last training test. Chin, I told my bosses you should go to advanced combat training. The army needs soldiers like you. Soldiers who can think fast and beat any problem. Sarah felt proud and happy. Thank you, Sergeant. Don't thank me. You earned this. Every bit of it. As graduation day got close, Sarah thought about her journey. The pain of those first weeks was hard. The shame was hard. Always having to prove herself was hard. But it had all led to this moment. The night before graduation, Webb came to talk to her one more time. "Chin, I need to ask you something." "What?" "When we took your gun that day when we were laughing at you, were you scared?" Sarah thought about his question carefully. "For a little bit, yes. But then I remembered something my grandfather told me." "What was that?" "He said that the best warriors are made in the hottest fire. Every insult, every time someone doubts you, every person who tells you that you can't do something, they're just adding wood to the fire that burns inside you." Webb nodded slowly. "So we were your fire that day." "You were. And I want to thank you for that." "Thank us? For being mean to you?" Sarah smiled. "For giving me the chance to prove what I could do, for showing me that I was stronger than I knew, for helping me become the soldier I needed to be." On graduation day, Sarah stood with her fellow soldiers. She thought about those 87 seconds that changed everything. The moment when she stopped being the girl who was trying to fit in. The moment she became the warrior she was meant to be. The ceremony was formal and proud. Families filled the seats, cheering for the new soldiers. But for Sarah, the real victory had already happened on that fighting mat. That was when 5 men learned that strength comes in many different ways. When they threw their graduation caps in the air, Webb shouted loud enough for everyone to hear, "Remember guys, don't mess with Chen." The laughter that came after was different now. It was warm and friendly and full of real love. Sarah had found her place. Not by making herself smaller, but by showing the world exactly how big she really was. Months later, Sarah got her first orders to go fight in a real war. She looked back on that day and felt grateful. The men who tried to break her spirit had instead helped her find her real strength. They had laughed at her. They had taken her gun. They thought she would give up. Instead, she had done something none of them would ever forget. In 87 seconds, she had changed not just what they thought about her. She had changed what they understood about being a soldier. And sometimes, late at night in the sleeping quarters, she could still remember that quiet moment after she had proven herself. The moment when mean laughter turned to amazement. When disrespect became respect. When a small woman showed 5 big men what real strength looked like. The best part wasn't just that she won. It was that by winning she helped them all become better soldiers and better people. Her grandfather would have been very proud. Sarah thought about those 87 seconds often. The moment when everything changed. The moment when she stopped trying to prove she belonged and simply showed that she did. Years later, when she became a sergeant herself, Sarah would tell new recruits the same thing her grandfather had told her. Size doesn't matter. Skill matters. Heart matters. And sometimes the smallest person in the room is the most dangerous. She would smile when she said it, remembering 5 men who learned that lesson the hard way. 5 men who thought they knew what strength looked like. 5 men who were very, very wrong. The story of those 87 seconds became legend at the training base. New recruits would hear about the small woman who took down 5 big men without even using her gun. They would hear about how she turned mockery into respect, insults into inspiration. And every time someone told the story, they would end it the same way: never judge a warrior by their size. The biggest heart can live in the smallest body. Sarah's grandfather had been right all along. The hottest fires do make the strongest steel. And on that day, in those 87 seconds, Sarah Chen had become unbreakable steel. The men who laughed at her had given her the greatest gift possible. They had given her the chance to discover who she really was. A warrior, a soldier, a woman who would never back down from a fight. And she would carry that strength with her for the rest of her life. When Sarah finally retired from the army 20 years later, she had earned every medal and honor possible. She had led soldiers into battle. She had saved lives. She had served her country with pride and courage. But when people asked her about her greatest moment in the military, she always told them about the same 87 seconds. The day 5 men learned that real strength comes from within. The day she learned it too. "They laughed at me," she would say with a smile. "They took my rifle. They thought I was weak." She would pause then, letting the listener wonder what happened next. They were wrong about everything except one thing. Those 87 seconds did change everything. Just not the way they expected. And then she would tell them the whole story. About a small woman who refused to be small. About 5 men who learned respect the hard way. About 87 seconds that proved size doesn't matter when your heart is strong. The story never got old. Because it was more than just a story about fighting. It was a story about never giving up. About proving yourself when no one believes in you. About finding strength you didn't know you had. It was a story about becoming who you're meant to be, even when the whole world tells you that you can't. Sarah Chen had shown them all. In 87 seconds she had changed 5 minds, earned respect from 100 soldiers, and proven that warriors come in all sizes. Her grandfather's words had been true. The smallest person in the room really can be the most dangerous. Not because of anger or meanness, but because of skill, determination, and a heart that refuses to quit. Those 5 men had laughed at her. They had taken her rifle. But in the end, they had given her something much more valuable than a weapon. They had given her the chance to prove that she was exactly where she belonged. And Sarah Chin had proven it in the most spectacular way possible. 87 seconds that no one would ever forget. 87 seconds that changed everything. The day a small woman showed the world what real strength looks like.